Welcome to the Kectil World Youth Network podcast. We bring voices from around the world, perspectives and point of views grounded in lived reality, especially those that are important to be heard by the world's youth. Today is a very special day. We have with us Ms. Lenaa Kumar. Lenaa is a highly acclaimed author with her previous title, The Autobiography of God, becoming a resounding success. And she's highly acclaimed film actor in India with close to 3 decades in the Indian movie industry. Above all, she is very special to the Kectil family as she has been a friend, guide, mentor, and a strong voice inside Kectil Network for the past 3 years. For me personally, it is super special to host Lenaa today at the podcast, as we had connected a while back when her book, The Autobiography of God, was releasing. She was fascinated by Kectil, and one thing led to the other. And I had the privilege of hosting her for a lot of occasions, one of them being one of the most successful webinars we have had on mental health for youth. Then later, she touched so many young people's lives and minds through her presence at the Kectil International Youth Conference in Atlanta, and later in the South Asia Regional Conference for Kectil, hosted in Bangalore in India. And we have been mesmerized by the way she sees the world, her brain works, and she's releasing her next book titled Womanhood. Welcome, Lenaa. Welcome to our podcast today.
Hi, thanks, Ashwathy. Thanks for having me on your podcast again. It's always fun to interact with the Kectil crowd and to just be part of the family. I'm so happy that I'm part of the Kectil family.
Thank you so much.
I
Yeah,
also
it is
got
a
to meet
pleasure.
Sherry at her very home when I was in
Yeah.
the US, and I think now I really am family.
Yes, you are. So when Sherry heard about the book, it was, this podcast is actually today because Sherry was like, this is something the youth needs to know, especially the world youth has to sit up and listen to what Lenaa has to say. So that is how this podcast also came together. But it's a very big pleasure and honor.
Amazing. Sherry
So
is always so full of concern and resourcefulness for everyone. I really admire her ability.
yes, she's a mom to all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, today we want to know more about your book and discuss how relevant it is to women, but also
Mhm.
how important it is for men to be equipped with this insight on changes that are going on in the lives of women in their lives.
Yeah.
So, youth, especially young people, should
Mhm.
be very cognizant of these transformations, which ought to have been a general knowledge, but has eluded the young minds for generations now. So let us just set it right today.
Yeah, let's try to give it a good start
Yeah.
because this is going to be a very long journey of awareness creation and actually getting to experience life afresh from this new point of view of
Mm.
that women's health is something like a sea which is constantly having waves and tides and high tides and low tides, and it's never a constant. Women's health, especially women's hormonal health, is never a straight line and
Yeah.
at any point in life. So she's a child, then she goes through a puberty, then she goes through the surge of hormones, then she turns into an adult, and she might choose to have children, and then she becomes a mother, and again her hormones go all over the place. And then after she's looked after her little ones, and somewhere around midlife, again her hormones go crashing down in a very drastic way, and then she has to reinvent herself literally. And then the ovaries stop producing hormones, and the adrenal glands, which sit above the kidneys, take over the responsibility that of what the ovaries used to do. And then she transforms into a whole new being, and it's a constant change of hormonal surges and dips, and that's what actually characterizes a woman's life. It is such a huge part of her life, the ups and downs every month and every day, in fact. So every day, either hormone is climbing up while another one is going down, and every single day. This is what makes women very different from men who have a 24-hour cycle and whose predominant hormone called testosterone runs the show for men. And so it's more stable and more um, consistent, would be the word. So men can be more consistent day after day after day. And if women try to match the men at their consistency, we would always fall behind because we are not consistent on a 24-hour basis. We are consistent on a 28-day basis. And we need to address that fact. Both men and women need to understand this difference. And when talking about perimenopause as such, it's a stage in a woman's life, usually characterized as midlife. So it could
Mm.
start anywhere at 35 or 40 naturally without any medical induced situations. 35 to 40, it could start and it would go on till around maybe 50 or 55. It depends. So it's a
Mm.
very long time in a woman's life. And I have named this transition period womenessence
Mm.
to rhyme with adolescence,
Okay.
because that puts it in perspective for those who are not going through such a thing, to have a kind of idea of what are you talking about. Okay, what I'm talking about is a stage in life which is close to 10 years long, just like adolescence, which we call teenage. Like
Mm.
your entire teenage years, you're going through an upsurge of hormones and a complete change of personality, a complete change of mental abilities and outlook, and a
Mhm.
complete change physically. So the very same things are happening to a woman between 35 and 50, or maybe 40 and 55. And it's very similar. Now, this time hormones are dropping.
Mm.
And instead of the surge, it's actually a drop. And what's happening is with that, the body is shifting completely in its composition and ways of behaving. And the mind is changing drastically in its outlook and its ability to have patience, or whether a woman starts losing her patience, starts not having as much resilience, stops being able to have tolerance for a lot of things, because all of those things, the tolerance, the patience, the concern, the affection, the ability to just have loads and loads of um, resilient power to just go on looking after children, doing all the multitasking and all the myriad things that a mother and a middle-aged a woman does throughout her life. She kind
Mm.
of starts losing that resilience and the
Yeah.
patience, and that's because all of those traits are linked to hormonal levels. You need huge levels of oxytocin to have that kind of affection and patience and tolerance to grow, to have growing up children. But
Mm.
by the time a woman reaches midlife, she doesn't have that anymore because the levels start dropping along with estrogen and progesterone. And now she needs more time to reflect on herself and
Mm.
to take care of her health the way she took care of her children and her family all the other rest of the years before this. And I think what young people and men need to particularly pay attention to is that the women in their life, whether it's
Mm.
their mother, their sisters, their wives, their daughters, they need to be educated about a woman's body and her health and the considerations that they should be showing towards a woman through these
Mm.
different stages that she's going through. Especially for the youth, I would say they are mostly quite oblivious to their mother's health concerns because women tend to hide them. They tend not to tell their uh, youngsters or the family about the difficulties they're going through and tend to suffer in silence. That's a
Mm.
very feminine trait, to not put their sufferings on others and to just go through it, gritting their teeth. But I think that's what I'm trying to change with the book, so that women speak openly and ask for help openly and from an aware place, so they can exactly tell people, their family especially, what they're going through and how their family can be of support to them. And also, basically, to just equip everybody with the basic outline of information of what's actually happening, so that we're
Right.
all not in the dark and we can actually take more informed choices.
So beautiful. I understand, like from my own experience and other women in my life, it takes a lot of experience, years to actually understand and appreciate the beauty of womanhood. We don't always start really loving the way we are, but we slowly grow into it. So, yeah, and a lot of things that you just mentioned, I will be digging deeper into it as we go on in the podcast. There are so many questions that are popping up in my mind. But as we begin, I just want to take a few steps back and acknowledge the journey that you've had so far, and like what we have seen you work on. So, we have known you in the Kectil family for quite some time now, and from the last title that you wrote, Autobiography of God, to the like the conversations on mental health we have had, and now womenopause, which we are talking about right now. So looking back, do you see a common thread that is connecting all of your work?
Yeah, the only common thread in everything I write, I speak, or I think about is how much awareness we can bring to it.
Hmm.
It's always about consciousness. Even when I talk about womenopause, I talk about perimenopause, I talk about women's health, or just talk about mundane things of life. What I'm always focusing is on how aware are we, how much clarity do we have upon on that subject, and with how much conscious effort are we dealing with the subject versus how unconsciously or subconsciously we could stumble through life.
Yeah.
I think that's the common thread.
Yeah, and like in the Atlanta conference, you began with this question of who am I, which is mostly central to the work in Autobiography of God. And I remember that a young participant from Afghanistan had shared the realities of war that they are facing, and you had a very poignant perspective that you shared, which kind of helped him survive the war without bitterness.
Wow.
Yeah. So why do you think that inner awareness that you were just talking about, which we've heard from you also multiple times, how does that become very central in this whole process of human healing, human growing, as well as when you're surrounded with so much suffering and chaos, how does that work? What is the dynamics?
I think awareness or consciousness of a topic allows us to go through it. It might be hard. There might be a lot of hardships, but suffering is not natural. It
Hmm.
is a response. We suffer something by choice. It's a choice to
Hmm.
suffer. It's a different thing to go through a hardship. But
Yeah.
going through a hardship consciously makes you feel more resilient. And in some capacity, it has a buffer system around your mind, your brain, which is saying, okay, I know the basics of how life works, and this
Hmm.
is life too, and this too will pass.
Nice.
That this too will pass comes from knowing that this too is life, and all things in life change, and there's always a solution, and I can be resourceful in any situation, and I can also have a lot of faith in the whole fact that life itself is very plentiful with resources, that life
Hmm.
will find a way,
Yeah.
that there will always be resources available, people, places, situations will come to my aid if I maintain a positive frequency. And the positive frequency is not about being happy in a difficult situation. It's about remaining hopeful in a difficult situation. It's about remaining resourceful and thinking of what next can be done. What is the next best choice I can be making? And those are positive thoughts. It's not doing the opposite and trying to be happy when a very sad or difficult situation is presented by life, but to look for the solution right there in life itself. Maybe the people around you, maybe a situation, maybe a thought, just an idea that comes to you could change your life and others' life. And I think that's what it does.
Okay. So coming to Woman of Boss, what was that moment of realization that gave birth to the book? And is it the personal experiences, observation, curiosity, or something more spiritual?
For me, womenopause being, it's a very physical and very real experience.
Mm.
Perimenopause is something that hits a woman like a punch, like 100-pound punch. You cannot mistake it. There's no doubt of. am I perimenopausal? If you're having that thought, you're not, most likely. Because if you
Yeah.
are, it's very obvious. You have so many symptoms happening together. But
Mm.
to know that you're perimenopausal, you need to know what are the symptoms. Even if you need to know if your mother is perimenopausal. Suppose I'm
Mm.
talking, because I'm talking to the youth of Kectil, I'm saying, um, you would recognize if your mother is going through inability to sleep. She's not
Mm.
sleeping well. She's highly irritable. She forgets things. She's not as energetic as before, or she has rapid mood swings, or she's very irritable all the time. She complains of body aches and pains, and she's always feeling like something's off, and she's trying to like she might be telling the youth that they are not doing enough, or they should be more careful, or they should be more mindful, and just generally complaining. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of those issues are coming from a mind that is at unrest, which doesn't have enough rest, really. When I say
Yeah.
unrest, I mean lack of sleep, lack of nutrients that are going to the body and the brain, multiple deficiencies of vitamins and minerals, a rapid loss of muscle mass, and also just generally brain fog and confusion.
Mm.
And that's why I want the youth to be more aware of this, so that they don't start hating the person who took care of them from before they took birth on the planet up till their teenage. She has been a wonderful source of every form of support for you. And then when she needs your care in return, if you cannot identify the issue, you will not be able to understand her, and you might start to resent her a bit. I say
Mm.
this because I personally had resented my mother when I was a teenager, and literally forgetting all the sacrifices and all the trouble that she went through bringing me up.
Mm.
And instead, I only remembered, like, predominantly the memories of her being short tempered, or her not having patience with me, or being critical, or just generally being in a bad mood at home. And since nobody understood her, and she didn't know how to ask for help, and she didn't know what was wrong, um, I don't want that to repeat in other people's lives. So that's very much the experience from which I wrote the book. One is from, and the book Women of Boss is dedicated to my mother. Her name is Tina. And she's so happy now that she feels understood and seen now, because all her life she felt that everybody resented her for what she went through.
The
And
natural. Yeah.
it's a natural process, but it shouldn't be this difficult for everyone, because we were all ignorant of what she was going through.
Yeah.
Now I think the discussion has started world over, and it will change the way we look at everything.
Yes, that's exactly the thought that we have too. And Lena, when we were talking about perimenopause, I know I know touched upon it just in the introduction as well. But
Mhm.
being an experienced woman for 33 years, sorry, I realized that this perimenopause and menopause is different yet connected.
Mhm.
Perimenopause is a period, and menopause is a moment. This I heard from your own discussion and conversation in one of the other platforms. So I'm pretty sure nobody realizes this, and there will be a lot of young people tuning in today with no
Yes.
clue what perimenopause and menopause. So
Yeah.
beyond stereotypes, how would you introduce it to them or in the book?
Sure. So, these are very technical terms, in fact, and it's good to be equipped with the knowledge of what they are. So,
Yeah.
menopause is a stage in a woman's life. Uh, Generally, when we talk about it, generally we say menopausal woman. So, it sounds like it's a stage. But in fact, it is just one day, which
Hmm.
marks 12 months, that is
Oh.
1 year of not having a period.
Hmm.
So, a woman who is a mammal has a period cycle, which is 28 days long, in which she has a 2 to 3 to 4, it can even go to 5 days of shedding of the uterine lining as a
Hmm.
period every month, every 28 days. So if that's the healthy cycle. So a
Yeah.
lot of women are struggling with not having regular shedding of the uterine lining. So that's one whole different issue. Apart from that, talking about normal female health, At around the age of anywhere between 45 and 55, a woman could naturally stop having the period. And
Mm.
then, when she does not have a period for 12 consecutive months, which is 1 year, she is said to be in menopause. So
Mm.
now that is an anniversary. It is the anniversary of not having a period. And then the lady is said to be menopausal. And then from that day onwards, it is post menopause. So literally, menopause is like a line in the sand. So before that, you have pre-menopause or peri-menopause. They're both the same thing. And then
Mm.
you have menopause, which is the 1 year anniversary, and then you have post-menopause. Now, post-menopausal life is also difficult for a woman till she fully, the body adapts to the new life of reduced amount of hormones, and at the same time reduced difficulties with the uterine lining shedding and all the inflammation, and everything starts now getting better. So
Mm.
perimenopause is the worst time, you could say. Like almost all women classify it as the worst time in their life. And I think it characterizes midlife crisis as we know it in the world. I
Yeah.
think this is exactly one of the major reasons of midlife crisis in women and men.
Mm. Now we know.
Mhm.
Now we know. So, and I am so fascinated by the title. Womenopause has that pause in it, which
Yeah.
alludes to menopause, but also is there some deeper meaning that we should, glean from the title?
Uh,
It's creative.
so the title was suggested by my husband, Prashant,
Who is
who's an
also very dear
astronaut.
to us. National asset, but for Kectil family,
Yes.
before the world knew about Prashant Balakrishnan, we got to host him
Yeah.
silently at the regional conference.
I know, that was so cool. And so Prashant is the one who named the book Womenopause. He said, "Why is it called menopause when women go through it?" so,
Yeah.
so we called it Womenopause. And then my Penguin editor put in the hyphens and said it could also be Women O Pause. Like just pause and listen and learn and just pause and look at yourself and know what's happening. Like just
Yeah.
let's just pause and look at what this is all about. And so yeah, that's the it's just a play on the word
Yeah.
women and menopause.
Oh, speaking of Prashant, it's like a secret, like thing that we always say. How many people actually get the astronaut himself to actually click pictures? So
Yeah,
he was
I know.
one of the unofficial photographers, even like he just came in, he owned it. We really loved him.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. He loves socializing, and he's a very people person.
Yeah, we
And
had
now
to.
he's a celebrity in his own right. In India, he's like a total national celebrity, and people love his
Sensation.
talks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're the power couple that we feel like we have some ownership over you or something. I don't
definitely,
know.
very close to us.
Yeah. Okay. So, like coming back, I want to, shed light on womanhood and understanding womanhood beyond just the biology of it. So,
Mhm.
young people always think that menopause is a later problem. I'm not just talking about young women, especially young women, but also boys. When they're listening into something like this, they would be like, yeah, it happens very many years later. But why do
Mhm.
we believe understanding women's biology and transitions should begin much earlier in life? Because I'm also asking from the perspective of how can they harness the power of it, you know especially women around them, their mothers, boss, teachers. There will be a lot of people whom they are interacting with.
Yeah.
So that understanding, why should it start very early?
So one, initially, like in the good old days, as they would say it, like
Mm.
maybe our mother's time, and even say in my younger age, a woman matured, a girl matured into a woman much later.
Yeah.
Like initially, it was like 16 to 18 years old was when a girl matured into a woman.
Mm.
Then later, around my generation, I think girls matured around 13. And today it is between 8 and 10.
Mm.
So that is actually drastic loss of childhood.
Yeah.
Because the moment your hormones shift enough for you to start having a period, you are becoming a woman. You are
Mm.
capable of becoming a mother. And that kind of responsibility should come only at a much different age, is what I feel, because it changes the way the brain functions and it also
Mm.
changes biology. So it leads to earlier onset of all the symptoms that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we have so many young girls these days facing, um, now it's been changed from PCOS and PCOD to PMOS since
Yeah. I
a
saw that
couple
too.
of days back. And that's great because now we're not looking at the symptom, we are looking at the overall picture, which is a metabolic issue. The
Mm.
body is going through a metabolic crisis. So, this kind of metabolic crisis is what perimenopause is. But
Mm.
imagine girls going through it from their 20s and even their late teens onwards. So,
Mm.
this is a problem in society in general. And
Mm.
what I have come to realize is it's because of the extensive use of plastics and extremely heavy chemicals
Mm.
in everything, starting
Yeah.
from just plastics everywhere in the environment, from the water and the soil and even in the air, because of it breaking down into microplastics. And microplastics work as xenoestrogens. So
Mm.
they kind of mimic estrogen inside the body. And
Synthetic estrogen, right?
synthetic
Yeah.
estrogens, because plastic is breaking down, but it mimics estrogen.
Yeah.
So the estrogen receptors get flooded, and this causes a lot of inflammation. It causes a lot of the metabolic issues, even in boys and men. They do
Mm.
not need this much estrogen in their body at all. Everyone, men and women, have a small amount of estrogen in men, just like women have a small amount of testosterone in women.
Yeah.
Not compared to either gender, it's less. But when xenoestrogens and phytoestrogens are extremely in excess in the blood, it leads to a kind of toxicity, which is now putting the body out of balance. So
Mm.
that's another issue that very young people are facing right away.
Men
And
and women.
men and women. And apart from this, again, there are more endocrine disruptors like the perfumes in cosmetics and just perfumes themselves, which have a lot of phthalates. And over and above all this is the issue of um, all the chemicals in our ground, in the vegetables, in the fruits, in everything. Everything is sprayed with so many chemicals that we are living in a chemical bath.
Mm.
And this is kind of disrupting everybody's health. So the issue is not easily manageable and it's not easy to navigate, but we need to take every little step that we can to protect our own health, especially our hormonal health, which is very delicate.
Mm.
So,
And especially,
so women are actually exposed to these issues very, very early now in life,
yeah.
very early, and which is an age when you should not be having to deal with these things. And that's why
And
early onset perimenopause and early onset menopause is very common these days. And one more topic I want to touch upon in like connection with what we're talking about is girls and women deciding to have children much later in life,
mm.
because they think nobody tells them that the complications are going to be much higher every year you age, and over 40 the chances of complications is more. But say you have no complications, even if you have children at that age, you're not going to have the energy and the dedication to be the best mother you can be, especially because that's the time when you need to be taking care of yourself and you're losing tolerance and patience. Whereas in our earlier years, we are full of estrogen and progesterone and oxytocin, which is a much better time to be a mother. And so I
Mm.
think nobody talks about it these days because we are being constantly driven to be more productive, more corporate, more of the workforce.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking from a puritanical or any kind of traditional point of view. I'm talking from a pure health perspective that is
Biology.
not being made clear. If it's
Yeah.
a conscious choice, like I'm somebody who made a conscious choice to not have children and to
Yeah.
pursue my career, that's a different stance. But if you
Mm.
decide to pursue your career and decide to have children later in life, thinking it's okay, there's all the time in the world, I don't think that's a very right
Mm.
perspective. And I just think it needs to be put out there to the youth because someone has to tell them the truth that
Yeah.
40 plus, there is a rapid decline in energy, in eyesight, in hormonal
True.
health, in the whole metabolic system. And if nobody has warned you about it, I want to be that little voice that tells you to pay more attention. You have the internet, do your research, and then take very, very uh, clear life decisions as to how you want to pursue your life going forward: career, life, balance, family, marriage, all of those topics.
Yeah, I think it's also this how society, how we are made to perceive society nowadays that kind of plays with our own internal, understanding of our own body. We'll be like, yeah, okay, but maybe we can still have it all later. But yeah,
Mm.
it just doesn't work that way. And
Yeah.
where you did mention this, but just reiterating, women, especially women, go through so much physiological and emotional transformations across their life, right? So, this word "womenescence" that you just said, it's that is heavily misunderstood. And puberty, menstruation, fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, there's so many terms that we need to understand when it comes to a woman's physiology. But society just normalizes these processes, right, up to a point where we are even gaslit to understand that we have to function like a man, and just like not act as if this is not going on simultaneously in our lives. Why does the society normalize it, but at the same time, like simultaneously, refuse to truly understand them?
I don't think, like, I don't have the same point of view as what you just said. I
Okay.
think the topic is ignorance. I
Oh,
think society is ignorant of this. Like,
yeah.
other than a woman who is going through the things she's going through, nobody else really knows this. They're never going through it. They don't have the experience. They don't have a point of view about it.
Yeah.
So, the rest of society, men, children, younger people, men and women, younger
Mm,
men and women, have no clue about these issues.
mm,
So, only the woman who is going through them, let's say pregnancy and
yeah.
childbirth, only a mother knows what that is like. Even a woman of the same age who has not had a child does not know what it's like.
Mm,
Similarly, only a perimenopausal woman knows what it is to be perimenopausal. Only a woman going through endometriosis knows the horrors of it. Only a
mm,
woman going through PCOS or PCOD, now PMOD, knows what it is.
yeah.
So, ideally, what I am vouching for is that women learn about their body, the problems they go through, the biology, the psychology, the physiology of it. We have no excuse. We need to educate ourselves and then educate those around us.
Mm,
And that's how society is going to know what is normal. The rest of
yeah.
the world, like the men, the youngsters, the teenagers, and young adults, other than the perimenopausal women, and the menopausal women also know about it, but they don't really technically know what it was. They've already gone through something, they just know it was horrible, but now they're happy they're out of it. So, ideally, I think we need to have more women learn about the subject, talk about it, normalize the conversation, and educate those around them, especially their loved ones, and especially
Yeah.
the men in their lives, about what we go through and what's the kind of support they could give us. And we need to be uh, more normalized about the fact of asking for help. We need to be okay with asking for help. So women need to learn that too, apart from all the rest of the myriad information about their own health.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of men, I've often heard people ask this question, especially women. Men don't go through such like this whole gamut of biological processes, so they can never truly understand. So, what is your response to that?
Yeah, they cannot understand. That's exactly what we should understand. And we need to not try to make them understand what it's like because it's not part of their biology, it's not a part of their physiology. So they
Mm,
can only kind of imagine. try to imagine what it might be like. But instead of having them imagine what our life is like, we can tell them exactly what they could do to make our life better. And
Mm.
trust me, men love to be able to provide and protect. Men just love to be able to provide and protect. That makes them feel very useful, very capable, and very powerful. Men feel
Yeah.
powerful when they can provide and protect. So when we tell them what they can provide us and be
Mm.
grateful about it when they provide it, it can change your entire relationship. The relationship with men will drastically become so positive and beautiful when a
Mm.
woman can voice what her needs are and ask for it politely, not as a
Mm.
demand and an expectation. Men hate to be taken for granted. So if a
Yeah.
woman asks it in the sense that, don't you know you should be providing me this, a man loses interest.
Yeah. I also heard from one of the discussions that you were leading about, biological processes that are happening with men as well. And it's not like menopause is well known, but what happens with men are not known at all. I mean, that's a very big disadvantage that even men are carrying around. So I want this listeners to even have a insight into that as well.
Yeah. So there are two disadvantages that men have. One with menopause and two with their own problem. So I'll come to first their problem with menopause.
Yeah.
They love their women, whether it's their mother, their wife, their sisters, their daughters. They love their women who are so loved by the men in their lives. But they hate it when they feel helpless and they're not able to understand what the women are going through. They're not able to understand it because it's not natural for them. There's no way they could ever understand it, but they
Yeah.
feel helpless. So that's one area that they suffer. And they also
Mm.
suffer from the lack of clarity on that subject or being told what is going on and basically having to face a very irritable and hostile lady who is very loving to them till then. So it's a
Yeah.
very chaotic time for a man, and it usually leads to midlife crisis for men.
Yeah.
The next problem that men personally face that is similar to menopause is andropause.
Mm.
And andropause is similar to menopause in the decline of hormone. Uh, so I'm saying hormone because it's predominantly the decline of testosterone for men. And there are
Okay.
a lot of other hormones in our body. We are talking about the very predominant ones. There are many, many hormones in our body. So the drop in testosterone in men happens much later compared to a woman's um health. That drops between 45 and 55, that menopause could happen. Andropause is not a sudden drop. It's a very gradual decline in testosterone levels, and they can happen anywhere between 50 and 70. It
Mm.
depends on how well the man has nutrition, exercise, muscle mass, uh, genetics, all of it,
Yeah.
and all the other stresses and all of that. But even that is on the rise for in the sense of in younger and younger
Yeah.
men.
The age is coming
The
down.
age is coming down even for men, just like the age for menopause is coming down for women. The age in an andropause is coming down in men, which
Mm.
is a lot of concern because men tend to lose a lot of their testosterone levels earlier in life, which leads to a lot of complications from muscle mass to infertility and a lot of issues connected to that. Apart from which, I think the whole infertility issue that the world is going through is the combination of both the men and women's reproductive health
Yeah.
declining. And I think one of the major reasons for it is all the microplastics in the world, which we are
Mm.
all exposed to. So we
Yeah.
don't have a choice there. And that's why we're seeing such mass numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Which we had already discussed about, you really took us into the real technical meat of the topic already.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But this andropause is a terminology I got familiar with when you were having a discussion. I was just listening to one of your interviews or discussions online, and that is when even that struck to me. I mean, yes, this is something that I don't think many boys and girls are really aware of.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
term even.
In fact, all these topics are not generally spoken about. It's
Exactly.
these are hush hush taboo topics, and I think there's no need for it because they are all natural. We need to be talking about these things. There's nothing shameful about it,
Mm.
because all of these. Sorry. So,
So,
uh,
yeah.
this can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Perfectly well.
Okay. Fine. Yeah, so all of these issues, I believe, need to be discussed so that they
Mm.
become normalized conversations and that everybody is clear that these are um, inevitable situations in men and women's lives.
Yeah.
It's part of life, it is midlife. There's no reason, no cause for shame, no cause for guilt. There is
Mm.
no reason to feel inadequate or in some way as though something is wrong with you. It is
Yeah.
just normal, and we need to stop having to suffer because of any of the normal scenarios. The suffering is because of lack of knowledge and lack of the ability to supplement our bodies when we need it. Like
Yeah.
all of these declines can be supplemented with actual vitamin mineral supplements, and in required cases even supplemented with hormones themselves. And
Yeah.
so I think these discussions need to be normalized.
Yeah.
They should not be taboo subjects.
Okay. Let me shift gears to a little bit more the global cultural, political background of all the situations that men and women find themselves in. So at Kectil, we run a campaign called Thousand Male Promise Keepers. It has been going on for, this year actually Kectil is celebrating 10th year anniversary, and Male as Promise Keepers was a campaign that started, I think, almost in the beginning of Kectil itself. So this is basically asking young men to take responsibility, saying no to gender-based violences, not to abandon women after pregnancy, not to treat intimacy irresponsibly, and so on. So this is a repeated pattern that we've seen, or like this keeps coming up in discussions about the emotional accountability part, and some young men. They still struggle to take that emotional accountability, and it's a problem that we see globally. So while we are on this topic of biology, physiology, and everything that happens around them, do you have any comments on what you've seen as global trends when it comes to emotional accountability and just being part of each other's life in a supportive way?
Yeah, I think the kind of person we become
Mm.
during our formative years, and especially as young adults, is very much a mimicry of our own family and society. And
Yeah.
so, men from each society will behave according to their society's rules and the adults that they have seen and modeled themselves on. The one chance for great hope right now in the world is that our immediate society has become the whole world because of the internet.
Yeah.
We are exposed to all the cultures and all the points of view from across the globe. And that gives us a chance to see how the whole, on a world scale, how things are looked at compared
Mm.
to only from our society. And that's a chance to cherry pick the best practices from everywhere. Maybe we get one tool from Japan, we get one from India, we take another from Europe, we take another from Africa, and we can cherry pick the best practices. Like there are so many tribal practices that we hear about on the internet from various parts of the world, which are
Yeah.
so unique to that place. Maybe some custom from Norway, while another custom from an African country, another
Mm.
custom from India. So I suggest actually researching the topic on how to become the best version of yourself
Mm.
and draw a clean slate and start afresh with having your very own perspective on how to be the best version of you. And for that you
Yeah.
have so many tools across the internet. You don't have to follow cultural dogma or any strict rules that are not really in their best interest of
Yeah.
everyone involved. So you every man can be the best version of himself and every woman can be the best version of herself by researching the internet, because we have all the information in the world right at our fingertips these days, and we have no excuse for not having information.
Yeah.
The only reason we cannot know what we need to know is because we are too lazy to go like scout for it. So I think Kectil youth are already one step ahead of youth all over the world, where they are already involved in very high growth potential ideas and discussions. And I think
Yeah.
this is a wonderful way to grow.
So good, so good coming from you. Like personally, from on a very personal note, I just mentioned while we began the conversation, right? I entered, like womanhood and the whole process of actually growing up with so much resentment about owning my own, being. Like I thought this is so much work, like why do we have to have every month period every month, and like the pain, the kind of even a little bit of shame that involves when it comes to the whole process. And I know a lot of girls around me have had the same struggle, like not enjoying being a girl. So yeah, a lot of us actually struggle to see the beauty and power in being a woman. But now when we are speaking about perimenopause and menopausal stages, that's a huge chunk of our life, right? And which is especially as only voices like yours are coming out and talking about it. So I know there is a hidden superpower there. How should women unlock that superpower emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually? Even what is your point of view
Yeah.
on that?
I think, Ashwati, you have hit the nail on the head with
Yeah.
that, because this is exactly why the book Womenopause was written. It is
Okay.
a guidebook, so it's not an answer I can give easily in a like in a single sentence or a single
Okay, I've written a
paragraph.
book about
It's
it.
a whole book. The
Yeah.
whole book deals with this: how to turn this exact time of our lives into a superpower where we become the best version of ourselves. It is one of the hardest journeys. Just like in spirituality, you have the dark night of the soul. In the overall shaping of a woman's personality, so I call it the transition. Like adolescence is the transition from a child to an adult.
Yeah.
For me, womanescence is the transition from a woman to a goddess. She
I've
can
heard this
be.
multiple times. I am already, finishing your sentence.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
literally the whole glow up that a woman can go through when she owns her power, the power of the female complexity. We are
mm,
complicated structures. We are not a simple structure. Compared to a male body, the female body is at least 5 times more complicated,
mm,
because the female body is made to be able to carry another entire life within it. So it has so much complexity. And once we start to embrace our nature of the cyclical and wave like behavior that our entire being shows
yeah,
throughout lifetime, once we embrace it as that's who we are, and we're not trying to be consistent like men on a 24-hour basis, then we start to see the beauty of the female being.
yeah,
Of course, it is a pain to go through your periods and to go through all these things. And I definitely think nature can create more better evolution. We should evolve from all the trouble that we go through. And I hope it happens so at some point. But as we are living right now, and evolution is a very long process, what we can do is embrace our PowerPoints and also to ask for the things we need. Like when
yeah,
we're too tired, when we're too down, when we can't do something, we should have the ability to ask for patience, ask for time off, give ourselves time off, have enough self love to say, I need to take care of myself and my body first before I start trying to do 100 things that require my energy.
yeah,
So that was something I learned very late, because I was someone who would burn myself out doing what I'm doing, whether it is giving a podcast on a day when I'm feeling really down, whether it's writing a book, or even doing some household chore when I'm not feeling up to it. Now I've learned to ask for help, to take a gap, to take a break, to
yeah,
just rest enough. And those little acts of self love make a big difference. And of course, the whole embracing your change in personality. You have known me for long enough. You have seen the change from the very masculine sided, aggressive person, um, out there to conquer the world kind of an energy, to a more relaxed, and enjoying the flow of nature kind of thing that's happening. And I think I will prove to be quite a good example to people around me because they've seen me in a longitudinal way. They've seen me for years, so they can make out the change. And yeah, basically, it's about embracing who you are
Mm.
uh, as you are, not saying I would be better if I was like this. We
Mm.
are already very perfectly designed. We need to see the perfection in the design.
I'm so sure a girl listening to you right now, she probably would be getting that goosebumps, like really, really going forth and loving herself at this moment. I'm so
I hope
happy
so.
that you're articulating it this way. You're
I really
healing
hope.
a girl's mind.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay, you've been in the media for very long. You have had a very, very, very highly celebrated public life. And what you just mentioned about, all this exposure, even for a very common person, is bringing our world together and just making us living in a very small global world, right? So, do you think social media, overexposure to too much information, is breaking the stigma around women's health, or is it creating new forms of fear, pressure, comparisons, or misunderstanding?
I think both are true.
Mm-hmm.
I think on one side, it depends on whether you actually go out and use the internet to as a source of information and like the world's greatest library, or whether you get pulled in all directions by the confusing messages from social media.
Yeah.
So that requires, basically, the internet requires us to have a great amount of clarity on how we are going to use it.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful tool, and whenever we use very powerful tools, we need to be very careful.
Hmm.
And the more powerful it is getting with the advent of AI and all of that, it's becoming more and more powerful. When you're
Hmm.
dealing with a very powerful tool, suppose you're dealing with a power saw, you have to be very careful not for it not to slip out of your hands. It could cut something off, right? It's
Yeah.
really powerful. Unlike if you were dealing with a little hacksaw blade. So similarly, the internet is getting more and more powerful every day. How we interact with it has to be very conscious. Again, I'm using the word consciousness is what was going to really
Hmm.
shape your life. How aware are you when you're getting into when you just take your phone and turn it on, you should know that you're dealing with a very powerful instrument. It could turn
Hmm.
into a weapon against you, it could turn into a great tool for you. It's totally
Yeah.
up to how you use it. And no amount of external control will ever change um, anybody's use
Hmm.
of the internet. It has to be an individual responsibility. We have to very responsibly look into how we use the internet. And I say it's the greatest tool of knowledge. It has so much wisdom, so much information in it. Use it in such a way that it empowers you. That's the
Hmm.
only rule I have for social media and for the internet. Use it for empowerment. The moment anything on social media or anything on the internet makes you feel disempowered, makes you feel confused, makes you feel scared, makes you feel confused, cut it off. Do not continue watching it. Unsubscribe, unfollow, ban, block, do whatever you need, but do not keep using the internet if any part of it is disempowering you, making you
Hmm.
feel weak or confused or agitated. Do not follow that kind of information. Go for information that is extremely empowering.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the best route.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Mhm. Sorry.
Okay, so we had decided to do this as a two-part series, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the listeners, we are actually coming back again with part two of this podcast with a little bit more broader scope in the topic and discussions. But as I wind up part one, I just want to ask one single question. If a young girl is listening to you today, no, a young Lena is listening to you today and anxious about growing older, changing, or becoming a woman, what would you want to tell her?
I would tell her there's no reason to be afraid. Aging is natural, suffering is not. So I will take everything that is in my power to see to it that you don't suffer. And the greatest gift I can give you is the gift of knowledge, which you can use to your own happy aging, going through the process of aging and living a long and beautiful life with all the power you need to do it smoothly and not suffer.
Yeah, that those words feel like a warm hug.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, Ashwati. Thank you.
So our conversations does not end here, and we will come back with part two of our conversation as promised. So the conversation will expand into more of Lena's powerful take on feminism, culture, and human rights, and from her perspectives of seeing world through a different lens that none of us are actually we're not there yet. So we'll come back with that discussion. And thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in today. We'll be back with more stories around the world and especially perspectives from Lena soon. Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, and wish you all the best.